Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and it finally happened. We have our first trainer to reach 3,000 ELO in the Precious Path season. Now this is an interlude season, so there's no legend, there's no pose, but still the first to reach 3,000 is a big deal every season, and this honor belongs to a Japanese trainer named 315 Katanari 315. But not only did they hit 3,000 ELO, they hit it with one of the craziest teams I have ever seen. Shadow Kanto Ninetales with Scorching Sands, Azumarill, and Leafage Lurantis. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's take a look at this incredibly cool team in the Grey League. And it's off to a great start in game number 1, leading Kanto Ninetales into Wigglytuff. Opponent safe switches into Shadow Kanto Marowak, and they're going to regret that decision, as in comes Leafage Lurantis. Lurantis goes for an undercharge, but Marowak puts up the shield. Marowak overfarms way too much, and that lets Lurantis make it to a second Leaf Blade. Opponent double shielding, they want switch so badly, and if they want switch, they very well could have something like a Bastiodon in the back. Rock Slide shielded up by Lurantis. Marowak makes it to Rock Slide number 2. Lurantis more than happy to match the opponent's double shield and get a full farm down. If it is Bastiodon in the back, then once Lurantis goes down, this could get a little bit tricky. Lurantis fires off the Leaf Blade. Leaf Blade, big damage into the Wigglytuff. Aggressive pivot into the Ninetales, and there is Bastiodon. Bastiodon probably pretty happy right now, but it's not going to be for very long. This Shadow Kanto Ninetales has Scorching Sands, absolutely rocking the Bastiodon. Ninetales overfarms perfectly to the CMP tie. Scorching Sands KOs Basti, bring back in that Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff getting absolutely smoked by a Weather Ball. This toxic team got destroyed by Kanto Ninetales, and that's a good game. Decent lead in the next match, leading Kanto Ninetales into Empoleon. As long as shields are up, Kanto Ninetales is going to do pretty well there, and will try and sneak a Scorching Sands past the opponent's shields. Opponent safe switches into Furret, and this team doesn't have a great Furret check. So I end up banking energy and then sending in Lurantis, but my opponent realizes that I'm going to full send, and they put up the shield on my superpower. That is really not great, as my Lurantis, if I shielded, I was just getting farmed down, so I decide to keep the shield advantage, but my opponent makes a very smart play. They get aggressive, they pivot back into the Empoleon to lure back out the Kanto Ninetales. I really wanted to use Azumarill as a damage sponge for the Furret energy, but because they ended up saving that energy, things could get a little bit complicated. Scorching Sands is going to be shielded. I'm going to look to try and exit this matchup with a Weather Ball. Weather Ball will do some big damage on a Furret, but I'm not convinced that Furret is in range where I could actually knock it out. So I think my play is I'm just going to try and go for the catch onto Azumarill when they bring in the Furret. I clicked the button, and I guess I must have clicked it too late because it just didn't register my switch out. Swift lands, that's big damage. In the back, they have Clefable. Oh, that's a really cool team. Empoleon plus Clefable is an incredibly cool pairing. Unfortunately for my opponent, normally Clefable beats Azumarill, but I'm so far ahead on energy. I had all that energy from farming against the Furret earlier that I'm actually going to outpace the Clefable. Clefable is one off the back-to-back Meteor Mashes, so I undertap the Play Rough. Play Rough will take the KO, and now I just have to throw a few bubbles waiting for the timer to come up to snipe with the Weather Ball. Weather Ball I don't think would have been enough before, but with a few bubbles, it KOs the Furret, and we get the Game 2 win. We move to the next match, picking up an atrociously bad lead, Shadow Kanto Ninetales into Feraligatr. I'm going to look to bank some energy for later and then bring in Azumarill. If my opponent banks all this energy, I lose on the spot, but thank goodness, they end up throwing the energy. Had they banked 2 Hydro Cannons on Feraligatr and then pivoted into something else, I would have instantly lost, because both Lurantis and Kanto Ninetales get folded by a Feraligatr that has a huge energy head start. So that would be absolutely worst case scenario, but luckily they're staying in and they're throwing energy. My opponent ends up putting up the shield. They have me in Hydro Cannon range, but they don't CMP tie. So they're clearly looking to go for a 2 shield full farm down. They want to exit with 100 energy. Now, 100 energy for Alligator is still really bad for this team. My Weather Ball won't knock them out, so I bring in the Ninetales and do the Peekaboo catch onto Lurantis. Lurantis going to absorb the Hydro Cannon pretty well, but Lurantis is pretty glassy, which means that I'm still going to take some pretty substantial damage. So I put up the shield, I'm looking for the leafage down, but for Alligator, it was just so far ahead. Hydro would basically knock me out here. I would have like 1 HP left. So I end up double shielding, and in the back, they have Guzzlord. Guzzlord will take some pretty significant damage from Superpower. I'm going to switch into the Kanto Ninetales to get a catch and sneak and save the Lurantis. If they're pivoting in a Guzzlord into a Lurantis that has energy, my guess is they're weak to Lurantis energy in the back. I'm going to look to overfarm as much as possible. Weather Ball is resisted, but will take the KO. I have a ton of energy on the Ninetales. In the back is Marowak, and I'm only getting to one charge attack, so I will go for the harder hitting Scorching Sands. Scorching Sands is going to land. The next Mud Slap actually does not knock me out. Now I just have to watch for the catch. They end up waiting, trying for the catch, but I was patient. I'm not going to let that happen. In hindsight, I could have gone for the double Weather Ball, but I wasn't anticipating that I would live that second Mud Slap on 1 HP. But either way, we're able to KO them and secure the win. Picking up a very bad lead in the next match, Shadow Kanto Ninetales into Malamar. Malamar is incredibly good at forcing switch advantage, and that is really not good considering that I'm running a spicier team. Weather Ball is going to connect. I know I guaranteed win the Zero Shield, but as a Malamar player, if you're offered the chance to lose the zeros or just put up a shield and farm down, you're always going to put up a shield and farm down. I really do not want to give my opponent a huge farm down, so I'm going to get aggressive and pivot a Azumarill, and my opponent sends out a Venusaur. Oh no, this is absolutely awful. Venusaur just completely destroys the Azumarill, and the Malamar was able to escape with a ton of loaded energy. This is so bad. Venusaur farming up to 100 energy. I have to hope that I live a Frenzy, but I do not. Frenzy's too good of a move. In comes the Ninetales. Ninetales gonna have to shield up the Sludge and try and go for an Ember farm down. Sludge will be shielded. Back in comes the Malamar. I think I was not getting to a move on the Ninetales, so I'm forced to send in Lurantis. Lurantis, this is the first moment when I wish that I had Fury Cutter. Unfortunately, my opponent makes a second charge attack, and I just don't think there's anything I can do here unless they have a Gastrodon as their final Mon. They bring in the Venusaur. Maybe there's a chance. Maybe it's still Gastrodon. Come on, Lurantis. Win this for me. It's Carbink, and we lose. If I had a healthier Lurantis, I would be fine, or if I could make a Scorching Sands on the Ninetales, I would also be okay, but I have zero of those two things. I just have no HP on any of my Pokemon. Man, that Venusaur absolutely destroyed me. Ninetales gets farmed down, we don't get the Scorching Sands, and we lose the game. Great lead in the next match, Ninetales into Wigglytuff. Opponent safe switches into a Gastrodon. Trainer, this is not a safe swap. Normally, a Gastrodon would get hard punished by an Altaria, and then it would just get completely destroyed. But in this case, it's getting hard punished by our Leafage Lurantis. Lurantis is just going to get a full farm down here. I am going to exit pretty low, but I think I'm still barely outside of one charm range. I'm going to risk it. I'm going to throw on good timing. I go for the Leaf Blade, and I don't get knocked out by the charm. We survive on very low HP, and I'm getting back-to-back Leaf Blades. After I get farmed down, I'm always going to bring in the Azumarill because they're going to switch the moment their switch is available, and this way I have a one-turn head start into whatever rock type I imagine was in the back, and in this case, it is Carbink, not Bastiodon. Carbink is definitely preferred because at the very least, against Carbink, my Play Roughs will actually hit for some decent damage. I have a shield advantage. I'm going to have to shield something. Carbink's charge attacks don't hit very hard, but I really don't want to end up losing with both shields intact. So I will end up putting up the shield there and then going for another Play Rough. My opponent double shields and that ends the game. In comes Wigglytuff. I actually stopped tapping there. So you notice I don't sneak a bubble, and that's because I stopped tapping because I want to finish the game with Kanto Ninetales. Ninetales gets a 2 Ember head start. Back in comes the Carbink, but Carbink's fate is already sealed. I am always going to get to the double Scorching Sands. So I farm up very close to the back-to-back. Scorching Sands number 1, big damage onto the Carbink. Carbink desperately needs a farm down that it's never going to get. I could have thrown the Weather Ball there, but let's guarantee the knockout. Scorching Sands takes the KO. And man, we are just destroying toxic teams this morning. We get a very bad lead in the next match. Ninetales into Gastrodon. I throw 2 Embers, safe switch into a Azumarill. Opponent responds with a Toucannon. Oh my goodness. I love seeing Toucannon on my team or on opposing teams. Toucannon, definitely one of my favorite mons. The Ice Beam does get shielded. Toucannon, always so deadly with Beak Blast. I'm going to be putting up the shield here, and then I'm going to look to throw 3 in the move, as it will be perfect timing. I try and go for the Ice Beam, but this morning I was noticing there was a lot of forced overtap, so I end up throwing on alignment, and that's really bad against Toucannon, because now if my opponent baits, they can actually outpace. So I call the bait, I get hit with a Beak Blast, and just like that, I get farmed down. That is really unfortunate. I was unable to make a play for switch advantage, and now I'm probably just losing this game. If I was able to win switch advantage, Gastrodon would get absolutely destroyed by Lurantis, and I'm confident that Kanto Ninetales could do well into whatever they have in the back. Back in comes the Gastrodon. I send in Lurantis at its Corviknight. No. Oh, switch advantage would have been everything here. But unfortunately, even though Lurantis has superpower, which will hit for neutral damage, superpower comes at a cost. every superpower I throw, it lowers my attack and lowers my defense. And superpower doesn't even two-shot, so there's just no path forward. Even if I throw 2 superpowers, my clock isn't up to catch either. It was pretty close to up, but not up in time, so unfortunately we will lose this game. The opponent was triple weak to Azumarill, but unfortunately, we lost switch advantage, and that cost us everything. Bit of an awkward lead in the next match, Shadow Kanto Ninetales into Florges. Now Florges does actually get outpaced here, and the good news for me is even though Chilling Water will hit for super effective damage, Chilling Water is not going to be taking a knockout. So my opponent will fire off this Chilling Water, and I'm just going to throw 4 and then throw right before their move. But I end up CMP tying. I forgot that they overfarmed by 1. I woke up this morning and decided, you know what? Let's do some battles. And man, I clearly was not awake enough because that is a terrible CMP tie from me. Oh my goodness. That is absolutely atrocious. Opponent sends in the Marowak. I'm able to bank some energy on the Ninetales and then pivot into the Azumarill. My opponent is staying in. This means either they're very core broken by the Azumarill, or they've recognized that if I'm pivoting out, I have an even harder answer to their Mudslapper in the back. Ice Beam is going to be shielded. They're over farming. They should always CMP tie here with a Rock Slide, so when they throw 1 before, that's a pretty big surprise. They throw 1 before, and they Bone Club, so my opponent makes a colossal error there. If they CMP tied with the Rock Slide, which does do more damage, I think they would have actually knocked out the Azumarill. In the back, they have Dunsparce, and Lurantis will be able to close out this game. I won't even need the energy that I have on the Kanto Ninetales, because Lurantis, even though it looks like a bug grass type, is mono grass. I do have super effective superpower, but I should just be able to win the game with Triple Leaf Blade, and Triple Leaf Blade is guaranteed. I don't have to risk a superpower being shielded, suddenly being debuffed, not having the damage that I need. Triple Leaf Blade will be a very consistent path to victory here, so my opponent will fire off a Rock Slide. I put up the shield because that would take the knockout, but I can make a 3rd Leaf Blade, and that is going to secure the win. This is still one of the crazier looking teams that I've ever seen. I can't believe that it keeps winning. Ooh, we've got a problem lead in the next match, and its name is Shadow Malamar. We saw a regular Malamar earlier, and I honestly got completely destroyed by that team. So this time, I'm switching up my strategy, and I'm shielding. I'm going to farm up to the back-to-back Weather Balls, looking to put some pressure on my opponent. Overheat would just take the knockout, but my opponent does not respect it. They safe switch into Feraligatr as I fire off the Weather Ball fire. What a devastating catch. I now send in Lurantis, and the good news for me is even though they're up to Shadow Claws, Lurantis wins Charge Attack priority over Feraligatr. So I CMP tie Leaf Blade to their Ice Beam. Now the good thing is I think 5 Leafages will KO here, so if they full send the Ice Beam, look at this farm for Lurantis. Oh my goodness, Lurantis gets a perfect farm down, and that's a massive swing of momentum back to me. If they bring in the Malamar, Malamar is going to get knocked out by the Leaf Blade. If my opponent shields, I know they're weak to Lurantis. They do put up the shield. They clearly do not want to deal with Lurantis whatsoever. The moment they throw here, I'm just going to pivot back into the Ninetales. Opponent sends in Empoleon. It's going to be a race, but with the energy head start we have, we outpace by 1 singular turn. Scorching Sands rocks the Empoleon, and that's going to secure our win. If I hadn't blind switched into the Ninetales, I would have gotten outpaced and lost the game, and Azumarill would have lost to Empoleon, but with decisive decision making, we take the knockout and secure yet another win. Hopping into the final match, oh my goodness, what a lead. Fortress leading into our Ninetales. Opponent safe switches into Wigglytuff, and I've seen so many teams this season that are ABA to fire. It feels so good to finally have a fire type on the lead to be able to punish teams like this. I'm very confident it's going to be a Bastiodon or a Carbink in the back because they need a very hard check to fire. But the good news for me in the meantime is, my goodness, I am just absolutely deleting this Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff is getting so severely outpaced. Now, when they bring in the Rock type, I'm going to look to bank a Weather Ball before I switch out. And that is very intentional because I need to lure back out the Fortress with my Azumarill and then have a Weather Ball loaded. So if they exit with energy, then I'm in a pretty okay spot where I can just win Charge Attack priority over them and deny that energy. There, I don't know what happened. My charge move button, I thought I clicked the play rough like several seconds before it actually went off. And I guess my play rough just didn't really go off there, which is very odd. Again, the game state was not amazing this morning. I know it's an interlude season, so they're working on fixing stuff, but man, it definitely made some of these games a little bit more difficult than they should have been. Fortress will fire off the Rock Tomb, but this is not going to knock out. I can survive it. They're going to be pivoting into the Carbink, and now I reveal it's Lurantis in the back. Lurantis firing off the Leaf Blade. Leaf Blade is going to be hitting for some very nice damage onto the Carbink. Carbink goes for the Rock Slide. Rock Slide I mean, it's going to do some sizable neutral damage. Lurantis is not the bulkiest, but I should still be in a completely winning position because I have a Play Rough banked on the Azumarill, and my Ninetales has a Weather Ball banked. I have energy absolutely everywhere. My opponent, they could have got the farm down, but they panic a little bit. They fire off the Rock Slide. They were worried that Lurantis had better pacing than it had. They make a catch of the Play Rough onto their Fortress, but it's just not going to save them because I can bring in the Ninetales, make it to the Scorching Sands one final time. Kanto Ninetales deleting a Rock type. Down goes Carbink, and that's a good game. All in all, man, I had so much fun with this team. I think this team is definitely a pretty tricky team to use because you're using two very anti-meta Pokemon as Shadow Kanto Ninetales and Lurantis, and Azumarill, which is kind of an old meta staple of Blast in the past, but you don't see Azumarill nearly as much now, and that's just kind of due to the fact that time and power creep has made it so, even though it's still strong, it's not quite the same, like, meta-dominating menace that it once was. So this team, big congratulations to Katanari. Being the first in the world to hit 3,000 ELO is an absolutely unreal accomplishment. It was a goal that I myself was pushing for. I got as high as 2977, and unfortunately, it just was not enough. I was not able to make it across the finish line there. I ended up having a couple 2-3 sets, and at that ELO range, 2-3 sets will lose you about 40 ELO, and 3-2 sets will actually be negative just because of how high you are. So I got close. I tried, unfortunately, unsuccessful. I'm still in the 2900s, and this team actually got me back up to 2946. I had some pretty nice sets with it. So again, big congratulations to Katanari. Now this team, as I mentioned, I think it has a pretty high difficulty level to use in that you have to be very precise with your energy management and being decisive with your switches in and out. Because anytime you are using spicier Pokemon, it means that you're operating at a lower power level than your opponent. That does mean that precise plays will be needed to ensure that you're able to take advantage of any advantageous positions that you're in, because otherwise you could sometimes just get outbulked, like the game versus the Shadow Malamar, Venusaur, and Carbink, where I had a bunch of energy on my Lurantis, but I just got rock thrown down because I didn't have enough HP. So I would say it's definitely more of a tricky team to use, but I think it's also a pretty fun team. Shadow Kanto Ninetales, definitely a pretty fun pick, and Lurantis, I don't know if I've played it with Leafage before, and it actually felt pretty fun to use overall. So again, massive congrats to Katanari. I did get to meet Katanari very briefly at the World Championships this past August. They're an unbelievably good battler, and wow, what a cool team. This interlude season, people are trying to run fun stuff, and I feel like this team is a really good example of that. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not. And an extra special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.